Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Welcome, everyone, to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This is episode 227 with myself, Jim Fuhs from Fusion Marketing this week, and guest Jaime Cohen. So you probably have seen Jaime. She's been a guest on the show before. We wanted to have her back because she's just an amazing individual. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on Jim, have him say a quick hello. Then we're going to introduce Jaime, and then we're going to kick things off with some social media news. So Jim, how are you doing this week?
Great. Little rainy here in Atlanta, but excited to have Jaime join us today. I actually got to meet Jaime at Social Media World Lima this year. So I should say Week Lima this year or last year, and really a great person. So excited to actually be on the show with her. And I know Tim and I hope to get her on the Tim and Jim show sometime this year as well.
Fantastic. So tell viewers a little bit about Jaime. Before we get to the news.
Yeah, so Jaime is really a speaker, communication coach, and advisor, and she founded the company The Right Words. She really helps people with communication skills, conflict management, and she also is a big LinkedIn creator, and she's actually got a few courses out now, and so she's really doing a lot of neat things. And of course, we keep kidding with each other that we're going to salsa the next time we see each other.
Very cool. So let me go ahead and bring on Jaime, and then we're going to kick things off. I know we got a lot of good topics, but Jaime, it's great to have you on this week.
Hi, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So you want to tell viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
So Jim gave me a pretty great introduction. Thanks so much. But basically everything that I do is to help you feel more empowered whenever you open your mouth. And I'm teaching people the skills that we should have learned as kids, but no one really taught us. And with the way that business is changing, transactional relationships don't function well anymore. And building real relationships is very important. But especially when you have a big business, how can you manage hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of relationships? You have to learn how to connect with people in different ways. So what I'm helping people do is learn how to build those relationships and then use them in different environments. So if they are at a job and they want to be seen as a leader, but they don't have that leadership title, what do they say and how do they act so that they start being seen as a leader? Or if they are a leader with that leadership title, how do they build stronger relationships with their employees so that they build trust and they engage people? So it's the whole idea of not just communicating, but actually connecting, understanding what the person or the audience needs, and then meeting them in the middle.
Fantastic. Yeah, it actually reminds me also of a time where I think there was a CEO where somebody wanted to really get to know them, but they didn't really know them. And I think it came down to just paying attention to that person, like the things they liked, and different ways you could connect with them versus going in there blind, doing your research. And obviously, as you mentioned, having the confidence, when you go to speak to somebody, to have that conversation with them, and sometimes there's little asides, things you can learn about the person can also help you in your communications with them. So,
Yes.
So it's great to have you on this week.
Thank you.
So, Jim, you ready to kick things off?
Yes. Let's start with Bitmoji TV.
So what do we have going on here? I mean, we talk about Snapchat sometimes on the show, and Phil, I know a lot of times we kind of we bag on Snapchat a fair amount only because, it's well, there's not really a whole lot of utility with Snapchat. How's this actually helping people? But what do we have going on here? Bitmoji TV. What is this?
Well, it sounds like you're actually going to be able to take your Bitmoji and be in your own little 4-minute episode of cartoons of your avatar, which is really funny because the only time I've used Bitmoji is I actually use it sometimes with text messages because I actually created a Bitmoji. So now it makes me think, do I need to start looking at Snapchat? And maybe I could be in my own little mini cartoon of The Walking Dead or something like that. I mean, Jamie, what would you want to be in a cartoon of?
Maybe some salsa dancing. I don't know. I think it's really neat because it's a cartoon, so we're anthropomorphizing this image that we're seeing. So it's basically you, and you can do anything. So maybe I'd like to fly, or I'd like to go and just go somewhere where I wouldn't be able to go physically, or do something like jump out of a plane. Just something that's going to be entertaining and exciting and makes people laugh. So that way, whatever I'm talking about, it brings more interest to the conversation.
Definitely. And this is a fascinating feature. I mean, you've got 4-minute cartoons. They like to compare them to Saturday morning cartoons that you would watch. There are no ads, which is kind of cool. Like the first year, by the way, got to preface that the first year there are no ads. Obviously, that's likely to get you watching the episodes. They didn't say how often they're going to publish them. But I personally, I like this. I mean, from a business perspective, I don't see a whole lot at the moment, but I think down the road, Snapchat has really been trying to push into AI. I could see this becoming an AI type product. Like you can't control the scenes that you're in. So like, yeah, it's PG-13, they say, with like some bleeps for swearing and maybe a little mild violence. So it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to put you in cartoons with the people you interact with most. So for example, if Jim and I were like Snapchat buddies and he was the last person I interacted with, we would appear in a 4-minute cartoon. I like the idea of this. I really do. I think it's different. It's fresh. Anything you want to add on this? And how do you think a business could use this maybe?
This would be a great way to interact with some of your prospective clients or some of your clients that you already have, so that it's not everyone feels totally comfortable on camera. So this could be a great foray for people who want to get into video, getting used to hearing their voice recorded. And then instead of having like where you have a live show like this where people can write something in the comments, they can actually jump in as their avatar.
Yeah. And I would also wonder how it might have an impact on some of the newer platforms, TikTok and even Byte, because now people may be more likely, because I think some of the struggle for people is like, how do I create something on TikTok or Byte where here they're really going to help you? And I think to Jamie's point, like now I don't actually have to be on screen. And so there's not as big of a fear factor. So I think, and it might also help Snapchat get a little bit of pop on actual usage as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because I feel whenever I hear about Snapchat now, it's normally just with college age people, and they're using it to interact with one another. But the only people who are really using it as a business are big time influencers. And I know there are some businesses that have different shows and things on there, but it doesn't have that same sort of traction that all the other platforms do.
And I think this is also a topic where like Facebook hasn't really launched their Facebook avatar very much. And so I think this actually gives Snapchat another leg up, like something, as you see in the headline there, it's, about how Facebook can't really copy this. I mean, it's absolutely true. Like, I don't see Facebook doing a TV show. Facebook is probably thinking more virtual reality as opposed to like cartoon. And here's the big thing with a lot of this. So a lot of this tech, I mean, I love tech. Jem, you and I are always talking about that. I mean, we talked about like this product, just a couple of weeks ago on the show, and I'm like, hey, it's another, live product, for instance, for mobile. But you have to get your customers there. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is a lot of like Facebook is pushing way beyond. Snapchat is actually, I think they're actually scaling back a little bit, saying, hey, we need to get people actually like engaged first. And hey, then they're going to do something maybe, I think, along the virtual reality route. But I like this. I think it's really cool. It's really fun. You can also, by the way, get this. So if you have a QR code, if you open the Snapchat app, by the way, if you're watching us live on youtube.com/socialchefs or facebook.com/socialchefs, you can scan this Bitmoji TV code and it will take you right to the Bitmoji TV option. But this is also available on the Discover page in the Snapchat app. You may have to update the Snapchat app first, but that's going to be the best way to get there. Obviously, via mobile only, doesn't work on desktop. So anything else you want to talk about on Bitmoji TV?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
I'm excited for this one. I really am. So hopefully this actually gets some traction behind it. So Jem, where are we moving to next?
Actually, I know something that Jamie really wanted to talk about. Let's talk about the LinkedIn CEO changing his role.
Yes.
So what is going on here, by the way? Just tell me, like, so is LinkedIn getting like, or, you know, are they poaching a CEO from another company, or like, are they bringing in, you know, are they promoting somebody as CEO? What do we got going on?
Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, sure. So the exciting thing about this is they're bringing someone from within the company up to the C-suite. So I believe it's pronounced Ryan Rolansky. He was the senior vice president of product, and he was actually one of the first people, or I think the first person that Jeff Weiner hired. And so it's really cool to see someone grow with a company and then grow up to the point where they're actually climbing the ladder, where they're running the company. And I think it's, from my perspective, and maybe the perspective of a lot of creators, is an interesting moment to step down as CEO, because LinkedIn has changed so significantly in the past 3 years. I think it's, in the past 3 years, 250 or 300 million people have joined, which that's faster than any other platform in that amount of time. And the culture and the dynamic has totally changed. So it seems like, why wouldn't Jeff want to stay on and see that through? But he also has built this from the ground up and seen it through all these transitions. And now, because, like, if you think about it sort of like a plant, the best time to propagate a plant is when it's already growing. And if you wait till it's fully formed, it doesn't root as well. So from that sort of perspective, it's sort of the perfect time to bring someone in when so much is changing and so many great things are happening, and bring in sort of a fresh perspective. Because I think a lot of times when you create something, and then especially a company, and you run that company, a lot of the perspective that you get is influenced by everything around you, and you're not able to get a fresh perspective or see things objectively. So bringing someone else in who's been working outside of your sphere but within the same company is, I think, an amazing way to bring some more life to something that's already growing. And I'm really interested to see what happens next, because I know it was interesting the way that things have changed. There was a huge bump when LinkedIn bought Lynda.com, which is now LinkedIn Learning. And after that, the culture on LinkedIn started changing significantly. So now that we have so many video creators, and there's live video, and more people are joining every single day, and I think the usage is up to 3 or 4%, which doesn't seem like a lot, but out of 680 million people, that's a good chunk of people. So it'll be, what I'm really hoping is that the environment and culture on LinkedIn is super unique. It's really supportive. Any platform you're on is going to have trolls, but this environment is uniquely supportive, and people are interested in sharing information and helping versus arguing over everything. So, but where LinkedIn does lack is a lot of the programming is a lot slower, or the features that we've seen on other platforms for years are just coming out. So like the LinkedIn Messenger, that could use a lot of work, and being able to tag people on desktop, that doesn't work very well. So it'll be great to see, and hopefully with this transition, there'll just be a slew of new features that aren't necessarily new on other platforms, but will be new to LinkedIn, which will sort of bring everything together and make it even stronger.
Very cool. So Jem, what do you think about this? The fact that like LinkedIn's bringing a new CEO in. I know you've started using the platform more. We've been started to use it a lot more as well. But what do you think?
Well, I think I would agree with Jamie. The fact that, one, they're basically bringing Ryan up, who's been with the company, I think, almost since day one. And two, Jeff's not completely disappearing. He's going to be the executive chairman. That's a lot different than some of these other platforms have done. And when you also have the backing financially of Microsoft, Microsoft, has been quiet in a sense, but they've also really given this company the ability to grow. And I think the numbers speak to that. And even I think, maybe the first 375 million people still think it's that online resume, but as people are starting to discover the engagement and all these things that you can do, I would say it's really probably become my favorite platform, neck and neck with Twitter at this point. And especially if you're in the B2B space, I think it's critical to be on LinkedIn.
I like this. I mean, I really do. I think that LinkedIn has made a lot of huge strides over the last couple of years. And again, I mean, it's to keep that momentum going.
Yes.
And I think that's key here. And, you know, you mentioned a great point as well, Jem, about the fact that they have a unique audience there on LinkedIn. And I think that's another thing. Like people might get stale on some of the other platforms thinking like, hey, over time, like you can't go back to the Facebook well that was there like, you know, what, 5-10 years ago. LinkedIn though is different because they're kind of just hitting that stride now. So like where Facebook, for instance, might be on the like decline because now, hey, people are moving over to Instagram, and then at some point they'll move over to WhatsApp for the private messaging aspect. But I think this is a fantastic move by LinkedIn. I'm excited to see how this shakes out, and it's going to be on June 1st, 2020. So I don't think like as a business, you're not going to see like a huge change. Like, great, they're going to have a new person come on as CEO, but you're not going to necessarily see like, oh, hey, the platform's going to like on that date, something huge is going to happen. I don't anticipate that. But I would say this, start to claim your company pages on LinkedIn. Get your company pages,
Absolutely.
your LinkedIn profile, add that as a job so that you can link back to your company page. So you're building, you know, your stable there basically of updates. So I think this is really useful. Anything y'all want to add on this new update from LinkedIn?
I want to add a little bit to what you were saying about a platform going stale. And I think LinkedIn has done a really great job of preventing that from happening. But what's interesting, and I think the reason why it's so successful, and it's sort of neck and neck with TikTok, except just a little bit slower, is that the culture is moving the sort of content that we're seeing. So, and with the nice thing about LinkedIn is that anytime something seems to get stale, something new pops up. But what's nice for companies that haven't joined LinkedIn yet is, even though for people like me who have been on the platform since video was just introduced, that it's happening slowly enough that people can jump in. So it's not like the best time to be on was 3 years ago, but right now is the second best time, and you're not behind if you join right now. Whereas on other platforms like Instagram and Facebook, you really have to pay to play. And with LinkedIn, ads work really well, I've heard, but you don't need them. Your organic growth can be significant just by the content that you create.
Yeah, so, in fact, AJ Wilcox was on with Stephanie Liu on a video, and he was talking about the fact that the organic reach on LinkedIn is almost like Facebook, say 8 or 9 years ago. And that is something that's extremely powerful. And I noticed just in the posts that I do that the type of reach I get compared to the same sort of content on Facebook is like night and day.
Yeah, it's you can have a bunch of followers or not that many followers, and based on your content, so you could have like 300 followers and still get tens of thousands of views on your content on LinkedIn, which is incredible. And it's nice now that for the people who are in the digital sphere, that we actually know what to do with this. Because I remember Facebook in 2010, I was creating content and I started just testing different types of content, but just for fun. And my content started getting, like, no one was liking and commenting back then. But then suddenly my stuff started getting likes and comments. And suddenly whenever I posted anything, I was getting like 100 likes and comments. But I didn't understand the business of digital marketing. And so I was like, oh, this is fun. I just have a lot of people that like to come and hang out and talk about the stuff I like to talk about. So it's nice now to know how to actually use that. And the people back then who knew that, they really skyrocketed, but now everyone has that opportunity, but who knows how long it will last. So now is definitely the time to get on LinkedIn.
So one question I have about that. So you mentioned how, you know, it's like Facebook was a number of years ago. Do you think that it's because of that, because like, you know, like an algorithm, or do you think that it's actually because you made this point earlier, do you think it's actually because LinkedIn is a place that it's synonymous with people being helpful and not having a whole bunch of trolls and whatnot on it?
I think it's both. And I think it's because the algorithm is is definitely a major component, because I was one of the first video content creators, and right before that, I jumped in on the people who were just telling stories and sharing expert advice. And a really smart thing that LinkedIn did, and who knows if this reach was actual reach you were getting, but for people who were consistent on the platform and who were engaging with a lot of other people, like everything I posted was getting like 50, 60, 70,000 views. And so that really piqued the interest of people who are posting, because they're like, wow, you can only get this reach on YouTube, and you have to basically have a huge audience to get that. And so there was a sort of shift back and forth. So it was sort of this balance between having something that's really plentiful and also scarcity. So they were giving new creators all of this clout and then pulling it back. So then you'd suddenly go and you'd be creating the same content. And then I remember I posted something that was just as good as anything else I've been posting, and it got 800 views. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And so then I spent all this time, like spending more time on the platform and figuring out like what changed, and contacting the product team and saying, is there something different I should be doing? So people really got involved in how everything was working. And I think what they've done really well is that there's no shadow banning and there's no punishing on LinkedIn. Like, the algorithm isn't always going to be magnificent for you, but it's always pretty good if you follow some general guidelines, which is really nice. And I think LinkedIn would be remiss to change things to a pay to play, because this environment is so unique. I don't know any other platform where you have this supportive nature. And I think also another thing that helped create what we have now is that it was sort of when this content and this culture started appearing, it was just a small group of people. I remember when I jumped in, I think there were like 100 of us who were posting content regularly, and maybe there were people from other countries too. But LinkedIn does sort of a good job of grouping things by the languages that you speak. So there were just a few of us and people sharing all this expert advice, which is one of the reasons why I was able to launch my business with no business experience in just a couple of months. So all of these people became sort of a family. And anytime, I remember the first year, anytime we met in person, it was like meeting a long lost relative, because you invested so much time and energy into these people that were acquaintances and became really, really close friends. And it was just sort of a very collaborative effort. Everyone was helping everyone. There wasn't like, if I do this, then you're going to take my clients away, which I see on a lot of other platforms. Like, oh, I can't share. Like, this was a big thing on Instagram. So before LinkedIn, and I still do a little bit, but my main focus was like fashion and lifestyle content on Instagram. And a lot of the bloggers and Instagrammers who were really successful kept everything really tight to their chest. Like, I can't tell you. And if you want this information, you have to buy this course. And in this course, you're still not going to get all the information. And that wasn't ever like that on LinkedIn. Everyone was like, here's exactly what you do. Here's what I did. Here are some steps that I took. And then now what people are doing that's even better is that there are so many different people teaching you how to use LinkedIn. So there are courses you can buy now, but they all have different perspectives, and none of them are really in competition with each other, because it's sort of like people are just, it's like making friends. People select personalities that resonate with them, and then they're taking those courses.
Very cool. So good update, I think, from LinkedIn. I mean, I definitely agree with you. Perspective of the course aspect. I want to thank, by the way, everybody who's tuning in. Shout out to Joanne. We've got Barb joining just now. We've got Phil and a couple of other people as well. So I want to thank everybody for watching so far. So we've talked Bitmoji TV. We've talked LinkedIn CEO change. What's next, Jim?
Let's talk about Instagram allowing us to use Giphies in story reactions.
So why is this a big thing?
Well, I think they're attempting to up engagement, and I think by allowing people to reply with Giphies, it makes it a little bit more fun. I think, with them taking away likes, I think that engagement, not to say that that's a bad thing, but I think they're trying to drive a behavior of engagement. And if you don't make it easy for people to engage quickly and in a meaningful way, I think it possibly has been a struggle. We really haven't seen what the results have been. I mean, I think to Jamie's point, and I'm the same way, sure, I have an Instagram account, but I haven't necessarily spent a lot of time and effort on it because I feel like it just takes a lot of effort and I'm not really seeing anything substantial out of it.
So I'm going to pull this up real quick for everybody. I've got basically a screenshot here, or not really a screenshot, actually. This is a video of the Instagram Jiffy animated GIF shares that happen within Instagram stories. So this is basically a very simple feature, but it is something that, like, in order to get this, by the way, just update your Instagram app. And then I'm going to actually show you how this actually works. So basically, here's what we've got. We're on Instagram and we go into somebody's stories. And this is, for example, this is our good friend Jessica Phillips. Hopefully this is actually going to play. I'm not sure why this is. Let's see what's going on here. So that's interesting. Let's see. Well, I have a video basically. The bottom line is, for some reason, the video won't play. However, I will drop comments if you're watching here on facebook.com/socialchefs. But basically, you go into your stories, you're going to see the reactions option here within Instagram stories. Now, where it differs, how you actually get the animated GIF part, is you simply just type some text in the text box and you'll see the little icon that will be next to the text bubble. It will change to a GIF icon. When you tap on that, it'll bring up options based on what you search for. So for example, in this example, I was typing the word love because it was a good example. And so it brought up all these different options for animated GIFs. I don't know. What do you guys think? I like the idea of this. I think that you could use the reaction. You could use the reactions, obviously, to kind of say, hey, well, you know what? Someone says like smiley face, or they say like sad or whatever. Maybe I want to like talk to that person a little bit more, but I like the animated GIFs because I don't think that it makes the reactions stale at that point, because you have so many options. And I think as a business, you can kind of learn from them. If somebody's kind of giving you like, if they're being funny, for example, like, well, and maybe my topic wasn't, or maybe they said they're angry, and maybe my topic wasn't actually like when we're being angry would make sense. Maybe I want to reach out to the person by Instagram direct, and chat with that person. But what do you guys think? Is there a business use case here?
I think there definitely is. And with your ability now to use, or before, to just, they have like a list of 6 emojis that you use most frequently, and you can respond. That's a great way to acknowledge people, but it's not necessarily a great way to continue conversation. It sort of starts conversation and ends it at the same time. But using these GIFs or GIFs, how do you pronounce it? I think it's still up for debate.
I always say GIF.
GIF?
Because it's not peanut butter, which is GIF.
Okay. Well,
but that's a debate.
Well, we'll just use both and then take a poll at the end and see what everyone says. But I think with the GIFs that you can create conversation, because GIFs are basically also memes. So they have text sometimes in addition to the video. So that can start more conversation. So you see, like, I'm at the place where you can buy the biggest cookie in the world, and then you do some sort of GIF that says like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And then that conversation starts like, oh my gosh, me too. This cookie was so great. Do you like cookies? Like, that's a silly example.
You could say Cookie Monster as a GIF.
Yes. And then you can just have a conversation with these GIFs, like one after another. And so it's this very interesting form of communication. It's sort of like taking emojis to the next level, because emojis are adding the emotion. But if you're using a GIF, especially if it's a video of an actual person versus just a cartoon, then you can show emotion even more deeply.
So I finally got the video to pull up. Hopefully you all can see that.
Yes.
Oh, good. Perfect. It's showing up. So another thing, actually, this actually makes me think of is the fact that you can create your own animated GIFs for Jiffy. So this might actually, if I'm a business, this is what I could see a business doing. So if I were a business, I could record my own animated GIFs for Jiffy. This is where like I think there could be some utility because you could be doing something cool. It could be like maybe it was the word like way to go, for example, or congratulations, good job, or something like that. And I think you could, if you get that to surface when someone's doing a search on Jiffy, I think that that'll help you with your branding as well to get things out there. And I think also in a way, you know, it gets your face out there as well. So any other thoughts on this feature? I mean, it's pretty basic, but
yeah, I think that's it. Good.
Okay. Anything else, Jamie, on Instagram stories, GIF replies?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well.
Perfect. So, Jim, where are we going now? Anything else? Any topics? Go into some tools. Get some tips from Jamie. What do you think?
Let's get some tips from Jamie.
Okay. So Jamie, you've got a course. I don't know if you want to tell people about your course.
Sure. So yeah, I have a course with LinkedIn Learning that I filmed last year. It came out in December, and it's called Connecting with Your Audience Using Video. And it can be applied to any platform, but it's most specifically for LinkedIn. And what it's doing is teaching you how to feel comfortable and confident on camera, and then be able to use video to connect with your audience. So what I talk about a lot in the video is in the course is how video takes a one-to-many reaction or one-to-many interaction and makes it a one-on-one conversation. That one of the reasons why YouTubers are so successful is because even though we're more connected than we've ever been, we're more disconnected physically and people are lonely. So there's so much power in video when someone's looking directly into the camera. The viewer feels like they're looking directly into their eyes and that they're part of the conversation. And with the ability to comment, especially on live video, you can have a real conversation. If there's like 1 million people, or if there are a few thousand people on the live stream, maybe your comment won't get answered. But if it does, you get this extra huge hit of dopamine because you're like, out of all these people, they answered my question and I really resonate with this and I really want to connect with them. And I feel like I am very reluctant to just going with trends, but I have noticed myself that there are some YouTubers I've been watching for years that I feel extremely connected to. And when they've launched products, they weren't necessarily better than any other products I'd seen before, but because I felt connected to these people, I wanted to support them. And this is something that can be applied to any other platform. So like on LinkedIn, for example, it's allowing you to really get to know your audience and vice versa. So that way you never have any cold outreach. Anytime I get on the phone with someone, or anytime I usually do a Zoom call and we connect for the first time, 9 times out of 10 people say, I feel like I know you, because they've seen my videos. And it was such a funny feeling the first time I heard that, but now it happens all the time. And it's so true because people, you're not starting at the beginning of a conversation. You're already in the middle of the conversation because you've had that time to break the ice through your videos.
Very cool. So look, I've got your course pulled up. You know, it's 36 minutes of content. Looks like some fantastic content, actually. So what's the cost of the course, by the way?
So if you have a premium LinkedIn account, it's free.
Okay, how much is a premium LinkedIn account?
There are different levels, I believe. I think they start at $69 a month. And that is for, I think, the Sales Navigator and some other tools that LinkedIn provides. But then also you can get a membership just through LinkedIn Learning, and I believe that's like $30 or $40 a month.
Okay. Cool.
But if you don't have either, and you haven't ever used LinkedIn Learning or lynda.com, you can sign up and get a free month, and in that month you can take as many courses as you want.
Very cool. I think that's a bargain. So
and a couple other things too, Christian. Veterans can actually get a free year of premium.
Yes.
And I've actually found, like, my local county library, Cobb County, actually has through my library card, I'm actually able to access LinkedIn and Lynda Learning as well for no charge. So there's a lot of ways to get connected to this.
Yeah, I actually forgot about that, but I remember when I was living in Chicago, there were certain libraries you could go to where you had free access to lynda.com, now LinkedIn Learning, where you had free access to different Adobe products. So the library is amazing. It is a hidden gem that everyone knows about, but also I think a lot of people forget about. And if just as a sidebar, if you feel stuck in your business, in your life, go to the library because you have access to a million videos. If you download the app Libby, you can download for free like hundreds of thousands of ebooks, have access to LinkedIn Learning. It's pretty incredible.
Fantastic. So I dropped a link to that in the comments if you're watching on facebook.com/social. We'll also make sure we get a link to it as well for the blog post that will go out over the weekend at socialchefs.com/SC227. So we'll send it out there. And we'll also send it out to anybody who's on our email list at socialchefs.com/daily. That'll get you on our list, and we'll make sure that you get notified when we go live. So be sure you check that out. But when we go live, and also like which topics we talked about this week, because we do have a couple of topics we didn't get to, ones that we really didn't think were like, they're newsworthy, but they're not going to move the needle in your business very much. So we did include those as well in the blog post recap. So now we're up to actually, Jamie, do you have any other tips you want to share with viewers or listeners on video? Maybe they get started. What's like maybe 3 quick tips on video if they're going to get started? Like, how do I pick between live and pre-recorded video or something like that?
Sure. So if you are really good on your feet, you've done a lot of public speaking, you lead a lot of seminars and things like that, live video might be a great place for you to start. But with that, I highly recommend that you have some structure, because anything that's great, that's improvised, has a structure that you're working off of. So having an intro, having a basic set of rules for, it doesn't necessarily have to be a show, but for your broadcast, give people an idea of what they're going to get when they're coming on throughout the broadcast. Reintroduce yourself, especially if it's an hour long, so people who are just tuning in, especially on things like LinkedIn, so that they know what you're talking about. Because on LinkedIn, you don't have, it's not as built out as Facebook and Instagram and other platforms. You still have to use a third party broadcasting service to get on, and there isn't any additional information except for a little blurb that you put on there. So that's something to keep in mind. But for video in general, everyone says like, just get on video. You have to get on video. I recommend that you should create video the way that you create a content calendar. Don't make video for the sake of making video. If you don't have anything to say, video isn't going to help you. If you feel very uncomfortable on camera, then your message isn't going to get across the way that you intend. But also on the other side, it doesn't need to be perfect. I think people get very overwhelmed on camera because of the perceived permanence. But one thing I always tell people is, because they're like, I don't like how I sound. I don't want it. I look crazy. I look fat. Like, you look exactly like you do in person, and you just have to see yourself. And also, just a sidebar, which I talk about a little bit in the course, is that there's this thing called the familiarity principle, or the mere exposure effect. And it's the idea that we are more comfortable with things that we're familiar with. So except for like a few supermodels, most of us are not totally symmetrical, and we get used to seeing our reflection in the mirror. And that reflection is different than the image we see on video and that we see in pictures. So that's why when we see a picture or video, the first thing we say is, oh my God, do I really look like that? And like, you do look like, I mean, maybe if you had a bad hair day or something in your teeth, but you don't look ugly, you don't look bad. You're just not used to seeing that image. So you're not familiar with it. So you don't like it as much. But the second part of that is the more that we're exposed to something. So that's why it's also called the mere exposure. So just by mere exposure to something, we like it more. So the more you see yourself on camera, the more you hear yourself in video, the more comfortable that you will get. And so then the last tip would be, how do you make things conversational? One of my biggest suggestions is a lot of people, when they get on camera, they feel like they need to perform. and they need to turn on. And so then it seems either really inauthentic or kind of stilted or just awkward. But a great way to get relaxed and to get very conversational is to have a friend with you and start telling them a story about something you're very excited about. And then if you're doing a video that's not live, and then keep the video rolling and then just transition into what you're actually going to be talking about. So you still have that same energy and excitement. If you don't have a friend there, you can have like print out a picture and stick it to the camera, or have like a little picture on the wall. So it feels like you're talking to someone rather than just into the abyss, into the lens.
I think those are great tips. I mean, especially for somebody who's looking to get started, you know, and keep in mind, I mean, like, for example, you've probably, you know, if you've ever watched anything like Hollywood related, you know, people always say like, hey, you know, being on camera, for example, adds 5 pounds to somebody. Like, so, you know, it's common, like it's, you know, it's going to happen to everyone. So, you know, practice, definitely, you know, as you mentioned, I mean, it is tough. It can be a lonely task as an entrepreneur trying to do this and like, hey, nobody's actually watching. Or doesn't feel like anybody's watching, but just keep in mind as well, like it also depends on the medium with what you're sharing. So for example, if you're doing live video and no one's tuning in necessarily, then maybe the value's in the replay instead of the actual live video. So maybe you need to change your method that you use. Maybe instead of live video, you consider uploading video. And then that way you don't have to necessarily, you beat at your own, you beat the drum at your pace. You know, you're not waiting like, oh, well, nobody's on here. Like, because there's no right moment nowadays to go live on camera. You know, it just doesn't happen. That model has changed. So, you know, you do have to find which model actually works best for you. If you notice you get a lot of people watching on the replay, hey, you know what? Don't worry about the live video and worry about the replay, making sure it's the best replay that you can possibly get up and that you're optimizing it properly. If you're on YouTube and so forth. Jim, any other things you want to share on this before we move into tool time?
Yeah, I think those are all great points, and I think the biggest thing is just people should get started, and if they're afraid of doing it live, I think the recorded way is a great way to go, and it doesn't have to be long, especially if you're doing a solo video. It's probably better to keep it short.
Yeah,
and
a minute and a half, perfect for LinkedIn.
What was that?
Having it a minute to a minute and a half, even 30 seconds. That's perfect for LinkedIn because people are consuming content rapidly. You only have a short amount of time to capture someone's attention and then to hold it. So you don't have to introduce yourself the way you do on YouTube. You don't have to have an introduction. You can just go right into the topic. And so if you're uncomfortable, I know even when I'm creating video, and I've been doing it for years now, sometimes I record a video 10 or 20 times but that's great because then you end up having a lot of funny bloopers that people like to see too. I have like probably at this point like a 5-hour blooper reel of me going, oh, I hate this. I'm not uploading this. This is the worst video I've ever done.
No, these are points, by the way. So we're gonna switch over to tool time now, by the way, which is our segment of the show where we basically bring up 2 tools. This could be software, could be hardware. It could be a mobile app, you know, lots of different options here. But we like to bring up tools that we think can really help you as a business owner. And the first one I want to touch on is called Tangi, or I think that's right, or Tangi maybe. But this isn't a tool. It's a tool available from Google, actually. It's kind of surprising. Just launched. It's socialshelf.com/go/TANGI. And this is kind of playing off what Jamie just said about 1-minute videos. And it's the fact that you can record a 1-minute how-to video. That's essentially what this is. Pretty cool, pretty slick, pretty easy to sign up for. We talked last week, I think it was, Jim. We talked about what was the tool we talked about last week? We talked about Byte, which you mentioned earlier. You know, and that tool was for 6-second videos. And again, I mean, this is for 1-minute videos. So it really comes down to like the content you're producing, you know, keep the content short, but the benefit to short content also means that you have to be very focused and deliberate with what you put in the content itself. So, you know, you're not going to be wordy necessarily or overly wordy, you know, for this kind of content. For example, we've got categories such as art, cooking, DIY, fashion and beauty, and lifestyle. And guess what? Those are all topics that typically fit well for a 1-minute video. you know, somebody that wants to learn how to make something like from a cooking perspective, you're not walking them through, you know, the entire, like you're walking through the entire process, but it's not like, oh, hey, let me put 30 minutes in here because, hey, it says bake this item for 30 minutes. You know, you're giving them just the highlights, the high level part that they need to get the item done. And then they can kind of fill in the gaps there. But this is a free app from Google, definitely something worth checking out. As you can see, 3-second videos, 45-second videos, 60-second videos, so up to 1 minute. What do you guys think about this one?
It seems like an amalgamation of TikTok and Pinterest. So I think that Google really hit the nail on the head with this one, because they're doing sort of what Apple has done for years, which is introducing things that we're already familiar with and just leveling it up. So like if you think about the MP3 player, that took a while for people to really understand and catch on to. But once they sort of got it, then Apple released the iPod, which was just a different MP3 player. And then the iPhone, which was an iPod with a phone in it. And then the iPad, which was video and iPod, but without the phone. And so it's just building on top of each other. So this, even though it's a totally different company, it's building on top of something we're already familiar with. So this layout is already very intuitive, and you're not going to have to read articles on how to use it, maybe on how to upload, but it's you learn by navigating or just by experiencing. So you can go through, watch videos, and then figure out how to upload them on your own. And it's really aesthetically pleasing too, which is a big thing, especially for desktop apps.
This also reminds me a lot of stories content as well, from a vertical standpoint. Like,
oh yeah,
very polished stories. For example, this macrame square knot video, for example, that's 25 seconds. We've got this, you know, DIY heart bracelet here. That's 59 seconds, but it does remind me a lot of stories content, except it's just one continuous video. So I'm gonna go ahead and play one of these. Which one should we play, by the way? I haven't watched any of these, so I'm not sure, but what do you think?
I love lettering videos. Those are always fun to watch.
So which one you want to try?
How about the one that says Dream?
This one right here, Dream in metallic watercolor.
That looks fun.
Okay, so let's see. I don't know if there's sound or anything on this, but let's see. So it takes me off. And this is obviously should look familiar if you're like a Vine user, because this looks like a Vine interface to me. So let's play this right now. This is pretty cool, by the way. So what do you think about that?
Very interesting. And what I find fascinating, if you think about it, this is owned by Google, who owns YouTube, but now they're giving themselves a different way for short videos. So now maybe I don't feel like, oh my gosh, I got to go start a YouTube channel, and I can get views through the #1 search engine in the world.
That is, I think, an excellent point, actually, because I didn't think about that. I didn't think that, like, hey, you know what? If somebody wants to start, like, say they want to put 1-minute videos up, putting them up on YouTube seems like a lot of work for that 1-minute video. However, if you do it in this format, like, it's a different platform, but it's a way that that YouTube, I think, can really that you could benefit from this by having 2 different options. You know, picking kind of which, you know, hey, I want to make a video that's a 1-minute video. It's very easy to do versus like, oh no, if I'm on YouTube, I've got to actually go edit this on a different platform and then upload my channel and then optimize it and all that other stuff. So what do you think, Jamie? Any thoughts on this? How could a business maybe use this?
Well, what I'm wondering is, since Google owns this, how is this going to be monetized? Because the dream for everyone is to get some sort of popularity on a platform and then move everyone over to YouTube, where you can monetize all of your videos, and with enough content and with enough of a following, make a full-time living on YouTube. But this just aside from that, this is a great way for people to just get started with video. It's really low pressure. You can, I don't know how many people are currently using this platform. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. So it's probably a great time to go in and start testing without necessarily a lot of criticism coming in. Find what your style is, what works best for you. Because a lot of times the greatest content and the greatest business ideas come from testing content, just testing something that you're interested in. And this looks like a great way to do that. And then so you can, instead of trying to sell, you can just give tips on whatever it is your company does. So like for me, I could go on there and give tips about like how to deal with a strong personality in a high pressure situation, or how to leave a conversation when someone's talking your ear off and you really have to go. Just things that are just tips that I would be teaching students or clients anyway. And then that way you're becoming a resource just like you would on any other channel, but you have this opportunity to have less pressure, but bump up the content because you can put a lot of content, but a lot of short content on there. So I think that it'll be just another great way for businesses to become more human and connect with their community and connect with different audiences, because there are different audiences on different platforms.
Yep.
Definitely. And, and this is just to go back, just to reiterate, this is, it's part of this short video making app, basically. It just came out a couple days ago, 3 days ago exact. It's part of Google's Area 120. So Area 120, it's a project they had. So it's owned by Google through a bit of a different company, but it also could be maybe something that they're testing to then maybe fold into YouTube at some point. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's really possible, because I know that some of the bigger creators on LinkedIn or on YouTube, excuse me, Freudian slip. They can do little posts and stories like you can on other channels. So they can have like a little photo post with some content, or they can have a sort of boomerang looking video. But I don't think everyone has that ability yet. So they might be testing this out sort of in a safe location and then bringing it on to the platform. But also, just like any big company, like if you think of Procter and Gamble, they own all of these different types of brands, really luxury brands, all the way down to brands that you would find at Walmart. And so that allows you to build an enormous community, because everyone has a place there, and you just use different brand names under an umbrella to make everyone feel included.
And they are a company called Alphabet. So
yes,
maybe that part of this, I don't know. We'll see. But that's, and again, I don't know if I'm saying it right. Tangi, I'm not sure exactly, but 1 minute short form videos. Very cool, very neat. Again, it could also just be coming to test. So maybe you put something on there and start to build a bit of an audience. But then you could take that same content and put it on another channel as well. Like if you think like, oh, that would work well for, Instagram or whatever, or some of these other platforms, might be worth testing there. But switching over to our second tool, by the way, called Shield App. Now, this is an analytics tool for LinkedIn. Jaime, I know you think you deal a lot with LinkedIn analytics. I'd like to get your take on this. Like, what do you think of the Shield app? So they do LinkedIn analytics. I can get some of that right from my LinkedIn company page. But what's your take on this one?
So it seems like it is a more advanced version of Google Analytics, which is great, because I've seen a lot of different products come up recently that are saying like, get rid of Google Analytics, try our product that's better and easier to use. And I haven't tried any of them, so I can't vouch for them. But Google Analytics does, for the novice or the layman, it does take a little time to learn, and you have to have a little bit of understanding of code to put it in your header on your website and all these different things. And with platforms like this, which go through like an API, which I know LinkedIn is very careful about who they're letting in. I think the interesting thing will be seeing a lot of high quality third-party apps becoming accessible. And on LinkedIn, the analytics are pretty bare minimum. So you can see the titles of some people, you can see which companies they came from, but it doesn't show you who they are, what they were doing first, the way that you would see on Google, like where there's no trail, and it doesn't tell you how long they watched for. It doesn't tell you how many times they watched. And so using having all of this really detailed information is very successful when you start doing some more outbound marketing, because you're able to reach out to people in a very organic way. And you can say, okay, this person watches all of my content and does not interact with any of it. And which is something that I highly recommend that people don't just disregard, because some of my biggest clients are people that never interact with any of my content ever. They don't like it. They don't comment on it. They don't share it. They don't do anything with it. But then they'll message me and say, I've been watching your content for a year and I want to work with you because X, Y, and Z. So once you're a business and you're starting to scale and you have access to these real-time analytics, you can see, okay, this person is coming in at this time every day, and this is the sort of topic that they're interested in. So now when I'm posting content that was in that topic group, I'm going to tag that person and give them some clout by recognizing that they're someone who supports my content, even if they're not interacting with it. And instead of doing these big block taggings that you might see some people do on LinkedIn, tagging like 5 or 6 people saying, whatever you post about, I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about this. Have you ever had this experience, or do you have a tip? Something that's really easy, because without getting too far off topic, the thing that can really make you crash and burn is giving people homework. If something isn't really easy to answer, so if someone can't think of it off the top of their head, and even I do this, they're going to save it for later. They're like, well, I don't have the bandwidth to answer that right now, and I want it to be a good answer, so I'm going to come back later. But if you have this like very short content, very specific content, and you can ask very pointed questions that are easy to answer, but aren't yes or no, that is going to really help you build a strong community and not just a group of followers, because a community is collaborative and followers are just an entourage, and an entourage doesn't do much for you except to give you some sort of like vanity metrics, vanity clout, which only goes so far.
Right. And I was going to say that I've started to have that happen as well, Jamie, which has really been kind of fascinating, as well as, Tim and I do our show, and we've been going live on LinkedIn now for at least a couple months. And I'll just be, at a networking event, someone will come up to me. It's like, I really like what you guys are doing. And it's like, what? It's like they've never commented, they've never made any sort of reaction. So it definitely, as I like to joke, the stalkers are out there. So it is pretty fascinating.
So this is the Shield app, by the way. I think overall, like from a analytics standpoint, it gives you all the content or all the insights in one place, which is nice. It looks like you have some very robust graphs and information you can get access to. For example, how often somebody's like, you can obviously look at connections, but you can also look at when people are posting, obviously the time of day, what their activity is like and whatnot. One thing to keep in mind, by the way, with this tool, you do get a free 10-day trial basically, and then you can get into their Soul or their Plus or their Pro plans. Keep in mind though, it depends on what you want to use this for. So like if you're somebody who wants to manage a company page on LinkedIn, you are going to need the Plus plan, because the Solo plan is only going to cover one LinkedIn account, real-time reports, content, give you a content overview, a profile stats, insight, and then also some network development, and obviously some content labels, some pretty basic stuff. But then when you get into the other stuff, you can do, with the Plus plan, you can do the full text search, obviously access to audience insights. So learning more about, the people, the company, the occupation, like where those people are at. So like information that actually can help you get some sales out of this. Also analyzing people's followers. But again, like I said, that company page stats piece. And then you can go actually up to the Pro plan as well if you need to see more about engagement and whatnot. So those plans are going to range from $10 to $30 if you're paying monthly, or $8 to $20. Me personally, I'd say, hey, try the 10-day trial. Make sure you pencil in 10 days of free time. Don't just sign up for it and then let that trial expire, and then test it out. So I think this, again, very good tool, because we know that LinkedIn analytics tools are often typically very difficult to come by, or at least good ones. So, and don't rely on the platform to all of a sudden, like tomorrow, they're going to drop a whole bunch of analytics or something like that, or some access to things. That typically doesn't happen. It just takes a while, a lot of times, when you work with a lot of these platforms. So keep that in mind. But those are the two tools we have this week. I got a couple more things. We're going to just wrap things up, I think, here. So for those of you, by the way, Jamie, what's the best place for people to get in touch with you, by the way? I love all the insight you've shared and all the tips and whatnot. But where can people get in touch with you?
The best place to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn, and you can find me at I can type this in here at linkedin.com/in/Jaime-Cohen. And if you're having trouble finding me, you're probably spelling my first name incorrectly. That happens a lot. You can also find me on all other social media at Jambalaya.
Okay.
And so that's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and on Pinterest too. But Pinterest, there are two I's because someone else took the Jambalaya, and they haven't been active in like 5 years. So c'est la vie.
But yes. So with that, so if you want to get connected with Jamie, she's going to drop the link to LinkedIn in the comments. We're going to just a couple other notes here. By the way, we talked about this earlier. We're going to have the blog post recap go out this weekend with a few more topics that we didn't cover this week. That's socialchefs.com/SC227. And don't forget, hey, we have an Alexa flash briefing and a podcast version as well. socialchefs.com/Alexa. You do not need an Alexa device, by the way. You can download the Alexa app on your iOS device or your Android device and go in there and activate the skills feature. And then you can actually get the Alexa skill. So you'll be able to listen to basically a 5 to 10 minute Alexa flash briefing of this show, basically an abbreviated version. And then just a couple other updates, by the way. We are going to be back next Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have Cami, hopefully I'm saying her last name right here, by the way, Cami Fuhs. We're going to have her on Facebook.com/social chefs and YouTube.com/social chefs. Any last parting thoughts that you want to share with viewers this week, or do you want them to check out the recap?
You should definitely check out the recap, because I love being on the show because I learn so much every time I'm on here. There's so many good products and platforms and things that I never would have heard of had it not been for this show. So I highly recommend everyone check out the recap. And then for anyone who is scared about getting on video, whether that's live video or creating any video, maybe start on Tangi, where you said that 3 days ago it went live. So there's probably not that many people on it yet.
So,
and just try different platforms, test, see where your content does the best. And if you need help, contact any of us.
Definitely. Jim, any parting thoughts you want to add for this week?
No, it was exciting to actually be on a live video show with Jamie. I know we've talked about her coming on with Tim and I, and we'll definitely have to plan that. Looking forward to, I think you're definitely going to be in Lima, right?
Yes, I will be.
So we'll see you in Lima. And Christian, thanks for having me as a guest host. And I'm like Jamie, I always learn something new. And even when I've been a guest host, Jamie, it's like he's always coming up with these new tools. It's like, where do you find all this stuff?
Christian's basically like the king of social media. There is nothing that he doesn't know.
Yes.
Sorry for that, actually. I will say, from a tool standpoint, I'm actually at the point where I have too many tools. Or, like, for example, I picked this week's tools, and I was like, I know you and I talked beforehand, Jim, about another tool that we didn't cover this week. And I was like, oh, we should have shared that one. And then as I was getting ready to put some things together, I came across another one. This is actually another live video tool. We're going to talk about that one on a future episode, but I have pretty much most of the tools planned out for most of the year. Hopefully these tools stay around. That's the tough part about tools a lot of times. But with that, I want to thank everybody for watching. Jamie, I want to thank you for being a fantastic guest. All the just bringing the knowledge, all the tips and information for everyone. I think it was just a for me, it was a pleasure having you on. I think hopefully everybody takes a lot away from having you on the show as well with all the insight you shared. Jem, thanks a lot as well for filling in for Phil. We're going to get teachers made some for that. But we will see you all next Thursday, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're pushing the show back a couple of hours, but see you next week. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Bye, everyone.